Emmett Till. The day that the modern civil rights movement began was the day when them white men killed Emmett Till. His mama Mamie was sitting on the sofa in her little house on the south side of Chicago when the call come in that would change her life. Her child was missing from her granddaddy's house. It was Willie Mae who called, not Mr. Mose. The white men who took Emmett had told Mose not to report a thing he seen or heard. So it was Curtis Jones who called the LaFleur County Sheriff. And then Willie Mae called Mamie at 9:30 that morning to tell her what had happened to her only son. Willie Mae said some white men had come and took him about 2:30 a.m. that Sunday morning. Mamie was still in the bed and was fast asleep, but what Willie Mae was saying showed it'd wake her up quick. They done got Bo, Willie Mae had said. What you say, Mamie said, trying to clear her head. They come and took him out the bed. It was Mr. Roy Bryant and J.W. Wilhelm. Bryant claimed Bo whistled at Miss Carolyn, his wife, so they took him out in the middle of the night. Tell Daddy Mose to call Mama. I'm going over there right now. And Mamie went and fell into her mother's arms. She said every bad thing that had happened in her life, her mama got her out of. And so this time, she couldn't think of nothing else to do. So she put on her dress and she put on her shoes and hightailed it over to Miss Irma's house. She called her first and tell her what's going down. By the time it made me get to her mama's, Irma was on the phone and had a pot of coffee brewing on the stove. Soon as Mamie walked in the door, Miss Irma folded her daughter in both her arms. Mamie said she could feel her mama's virtue leave her, just like the woman who had touched Jesus had felt when she touched the hem of his garment. Like her mama was letting her suck the life out of her so Mamie would have the strength that she needed to do all the things that her mama knowed she was facing. After she hugged her mama, Mamie was ready to work. Her first call was to the NAACP. She got a hold of Mr. Medgar Evers. He was over the NAACP in Mississippi. What happened over them next 3 days was like a blur. But Mamie gave all of her energy into finding that boy. Mr. Medgar Evers put in a call to Mr. Amzie Moore. He was the leader of the NAACP chapter in Bolivar County. They find Emmett's 14-year-old body 3 days later in the muddy waters of the Tallahatchie River. He had a cotton gin fan wrapped in barbed wire and tied around his neck to hold him down. Curtis Jones called and tell the boy's mama Mamie they had found her child dead in Money, Mississippi. She'd been waiting for the call for 3 days, ever since Willie Mae first called and tell her Bo was missing. You could hear her scream all over the building. She dropped the phone, didn't want to hold it no more. This instrument of pain and death. She realized she had been holding out hope that maybe they would find him alive. Even though she knew the chances was that her son was dead. But as a mother, you can't bring yourself to even have a thought like that. Maybe they put him out on the road somewhere, she thought those 3 days to herself, and because he didn't know the surrounding area, she thought he was out there somewhere wandering alone in the dark, tired, hungry, and scared. That was bad enough. But to think he was dead was too much for her exhausted brain to even fathom. Her mama come into the room she's sitting in and grab her child in both her arms. She didn't need to ask. She knowed what was wrong. Unlike her daughter, she'd grown up in the South, so she knowed there wasn't a chance in hell that Emmett was still alive. She tried to prepare Mamie, but quite natural, her daughter didn't want to believe that her child was dead. Mamie dropped down to the floor. She was in a heap, curled up in a ball. Her tears were soaking into her mama's shag carpet. She kept pulling her hair and saying, "No, no, no, Lord." The sheriff, he wanted to bury Emmett right off. "You have no authority to bury my son," Mamie told the sheriff, and she stopped the funeral. They was trying to bury him before the Pilgrim porters could get his body on the train to Chicago. The grave was already dug, the body in a pine box. But Mamie said, "I want the world to see what they did to my son." And Jet magazine ran a picture in the paper of his mutilated body. Miss Mamie said when she seen the coffin, she dropped to the floor. Her legs wouldn't hold her. They had took the body to A.A. Rayner Funeral Home when he got to Chicago. Mr. Rayner told her that he could not open the coffin. "Can't open the coffin?" Miss Mamie said. "After all the money that I done spent getting my child back home, I got to see. If you won't open it, then just give me a hammer and I will open it for myself." "I'll call you when he's ready," Mr. Rayner said. 2 hours later, Mr. Rayner called back. She told him to come. He could see him now. The odor met her 3 blocks away. It was so strong she couldn't hardly take it. "What in the world is that?" Miss Mamie said, never once ever thinking that it was her child. First she looked at his eyes, and one of them was gone. The other one was hanging by skin and bone to a place that was right around his cheek. The next thing she checked was her child's teeth. He had the prettiest teeth that you ever seen. But when she looked, there was only 2 teeth in his head. Then she looked at his ears. The ears was the same, curled up at the end and not attached to anything. But Mamie say she didn't see his ear. I wonder what could have happened there, Miss Mamie thought. All she seen was a hole, and then Mamie see daylight shining bold through from the other side. They had took an axe and went straight down from the top of his head. His face and the back of his head was separate. Mr. Rayner asked if she wanted an open casket, and she said yes. And that's what started the civil rights movement as we know it. When the photographs of his mutilated corpse circulated around the country, thousands would come and stand outside the mortuary, and thousands more attended Emmett Till's funeral. According to Newsweek and The Nation, his funeral aroused Chicago's black community like nothing else had ever done. Now it wasn't just black men, it was our sons that was being lynched and burned and killed. The NAACP introduced the anti-lynching bill, all because of a mother who let her son, no, let herself be shown at her most vulnerable. It touched people's hearts and it changed the nation. We don't know how many black men were saved because of the daring act of one brave mother. And when it seems like all is lost, I thank Miss Mamie myself for the things she done. 'Cause my son is alive and living over in Kirkland with a white wife and biracial children, and he can do that thanks to Mamie Till Mobley, the strongest woman that I done ever heard of. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. A long way from home. A long way from home.